Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in time and space when you're watching this. Hello, happy Friday. Happy Venus Day. Treat yourself lovingly today. And if you're not watching this on Friday, treat yourself lovingly today anyway, because that's our invitation every single day. um, I pulled a card for us for this week to talk about, and the card that I pulled is one that I personally find very triggering for myself from a personal experience that I'm actually going to talk about a little bit in the context of learning more about the card and some things that were coming through the card for me this week. Um, the card that we have this week is the Seven of Cups. For one, I have always kind of found this card challenging aesthetically. It's very busy. It's when I was first learning tarot, I found this card to be off-putting, just in its like I said, its aesthetic, what it's depicting, how busy it is, um, and our first or our reactions to the artwork that we see, the imagery that we see, that really can also reflect the message that needs to come through. And that is kind of like the beauty of like intuitively pulling cards as well, or even seeing pulling cards as a conversation with your highest self or with spirit or your guides or those folks who are working in your highest and best good that you're working with, because those like kind of clues and messages really do have meaning. They are important to pick up on as well. So if you have any cards that you see that you're like, ugh, I don't really like how this looks, don't necessarily take that as like the end all be all for that card, but feel into it a little bit, look into it a little bit, and just check and see how it resonates, how your feelings about the card like reflects what you feel like is in the meaning of the card or what kind of message is trying to come through for you. So that's number one. That's one part of this little mini tarot lesson. I pulled this card a lot a few years ago, 2017, during a time when I I had like broken up with someone I'd been dating for a couple years or a year and a half or whatever, and I was interested in putting myself back out there and like having like a casual kind of thing with someone. Um, and I remember at the time of like I was talking to someone in particular. And I remember at the time I was pulling the Seven of Cups a lot when I was pulling about our thing, whatever it was. And I remember being very willfully confused by this card, like not understanding what the card was trying to tell me or what it meant. Even though, you know, if you're pulling cards about a relationship and you get the Seven of Cups a lot, you might want to take a pause, take a moment to reflect at what the message might be. This is not necessarily an encouraging card when it comes to building a healthy, fulfilling kind of relationship, situationship, whatever it is that you're seeking to explore in your romance, your romantic life. And you could just see it. Like I said, it's a busy card. And ultimately, when I look at it, I see like lots of different options that are making themselves available for a person, but none of them look fully safe. Like you can really trust or lay foundations on them. They look like they might have, like it might be like a monkey's paw kind of deal where you wish for something and it comes true, but then there's like some grave consequence that comes as a result of you getting the thing that you wanted, right? Um, and so for me in this situation with this card, I was in a moment where I was really excited to like meet up with this person, date this person, whatever, and they turned out to be someone that I could not trust. And in that process, what I was doing and what I feel like this card was trying to guide me to see was that I was entrusting my sense of boundaries. I was entrusting fulfillment and pleasure and boundaries that I needed to create for myself. I was entrusting that to someone else to care for. The boundaries and fulfillment and pleasure that I really wanted and needed, and that I needed to create for myself, I was entrusting that energy to someone else, hoping that they would be able to fulfill those needs for me. Like, I kept pulling this card over and over and over again when I was pulling cards about it, and I would get frustrated. I'd be like, give me another one. It'd be one of those times where you just have, like, like a stack this thick of cards that you're, like, insisting, that you just keep pulling, because you're trying to get the right answer, the answer that feels good. And I would pull cards until I got one that I wanted, which, doesn't only works so much. It only works to alleviate the discomfort that you're feeling at that moment. It does not actually change your circumstances. So I really didn't, like I said, I really didn't understand the card, but it was a willful misunderstanding of the card. And ultimately, it did hurt in the end to get to the point where the message of the card, like, actually fulfilled itself in this situation with this person that I was interested in, that I was talking to. So yeah, ever since then, I still find this card very triggering, because I feel it's not the card's fault, obviously, but there are feelings. The feelings I associate with it are very strong, and they're so strong that sometimes I fear that when I pull it, I will end up experiencing the kind of hurt and disappointment and, honestly, literally trauma that I experienced from that challenging experience. So yeah, I shared that stuff with you, for one, just to, like, talk about, like, a process of learning with a tarot that can happen when you're kind of doing the stuff that this card is talking about, when you're grasping for some sort of assurance or some sort of, like, fulfillment someplace that doesn't exist, that's not from, like, a grounded kind of place. When you're reaching outside of yourself, when you're, like, really, really struggling for a sense of wholeness, and you think that it feels like it's the thing that will give you what you want, but ultimately there's more to the story that needs to be looked into. So I wanted, and like learning about tarot from that perspective, learning how to, sorry, I lost my words, but part of the lesson that I wanted to mention with that is, like, building a intimacy and relationship with tarot that's not about reaching outside of yourself, but about reaching within, finding a centeredness within, and using the cards as a way to support you, as a way to be in conversation with your highest self, the way to create intimacy with your highest self, or to create intimacy with your guides, your highest and best guides. But also, like, the reality is that we're human, and that we have human feelings and human desires and human emotions that can make that that duty as a reader for yourself or for other people, that can make that duty challenging, that can make that duty feel uncomfortable. And even to this day, like, it's something that I have to, with this card, I have to keep in mind that the lesson had value, and also it's not happening to me right now. And it's something that, and if this card is coming up, then that's, like, an opportunity for me to pay closer attention, like, deeper attention, and have greater intention towards whatever it is I'm pulling cards about. So when I see this card, too, thinking about this week that we've had, the inauguration was this week. It was a star-studded affair, and it's very reasonable to feel like a tremendous amount of relief now that we have a new president. And now that, all the events of the day went on smoothly, as I know that was an anxiety point for many, considering all the things that happened. Is that just last week that the Capitol stuff happened? I think just last week where all that stuff happened. Maybe it was the week before. It was the week before. It was 2 weeks ago. Maybe more than that. What is time? So thinking about like all the things that happened this week with the inauguration, and thinking about like what comes next for people, what comes next for us as we move forward collectively and individually. I think about letting ourselves have celebrations, letting ourselves celebrate our wins, being okay with having feelings of joy or feelings of satisfaction in some way, and to also consider the fact that there is more to the story than just what we are seeing. Like, let yourself have your celebrations, but don't let that be the end all be all. Don't let those celebrations be distractions, and don't let them keep you from getting to the core of yourself. Don't let the spectacle or like the buzzwords or the verbiage distract you from your inner trust or the real work that needs to be done. And the work that we need to demand is done, both of ourselves and our loved ones and of the people in our society that run our institutions, etc. I would also say too that this card can, similarly on the other side of things, it can also be a message to don't let things like cynicism distract you either. We have, it's not just jewels and gold that are depicted in this card. It's also, we have a snake. Who knows what this dragon is about? What the dragon's energy is really about? It's any kind of like emotional trap that you can find yourself in, which is important because the cups deal with our emotional self. Is water, so cups are water. So intuitive self, emotional self, feelings, love, all that stuff deals with that. So any kind of emotional trap or anything that would tell you that your fulfillment exists outside of yourself in some way. I'm even thinking like, creating like mysteries, like mysterious people being attractive, creating a kind of person in your head that isn't actually real, and, try to get fulfillment from that. So I would say when I see the Seven of Cups, it is generally speaking like a card of caution. It's a card that's asking you to see what is underneath the feelings that you are reaching for, the things that you outside of yourself that you think will make you feel better or more complete or more whole, and to bring a critical eye to that, to check in with your needs and see if there is a less reaching way to fulfill them, if there is a way that is more tried and true, more reliable, maybe less boring, maybe less sexy, maybe less fun, but does ask you to do the kind of intimate, vulnerable work that is necessary for you to actually get that sense of wholeness and centeredness for yourself, not be distracted or playing a game. So, yeah, that's the message for this week. That is what is coming through for this card. I will say that, too, that I don't want to make it seem like, oh yeah, this card is like dangerous or bad, or that any cards are like dangerous or bad. It's just like creating a personal relationship with a card and being able to get the lesson from it without overly identifying with the struggle that comes with it, without overly identifying with like any kind of joy or like good feelings that come from it too, but being in a place where you're available and receptive but discerning at the same time. So yeah, that's what I have for this week. I hope you all have a great rest of your week and you're taking great care of yourselves. All right, see ya.